What is going on, everybody? Jesse here for 3Prong Gaming, and in today's episode, and possibly even the next episode, what we're going to be working on in the RTS tutorial series will be the ability for the NPC to place a shack in a random location given a specified radius if there is no other desirable place to live. So it shouldn't be too bad. Like I said, this should probably take us about 2 episodes, maybe 2 episodes to do. But yeah, you can see the functionality right there. So grab a cup of coffee, open up your editor, sit back, relax, and let's get this thing going. Alright, in the last episode we finished setting up the regaining of the stamina so the NPC can go to sleep, and yeah, so all the stamina functionality is set up. You'll probably have to go back when you're done testing. I still have it set where it was in the last episode for fast depletion and fast regaining because we're still doing a bunch of testing. So, but don't forget you have those. If you want to go back and set those back to more realistic numbers, then go ahead and do so. Yeah, so let's see. First things first, let's go ahead and we need to create the shack blueprint. We've got the apartment small right here, and you can call it whatever you want. I call it a shack. Right click on your residential master, and let's create a child blueprint class. We will call this one shack underscore BP. Like I said, you can call it a hovel, whatever you want to do. You can call it whatever you want. Okay, so let's go ahead and open this up now. And in here we get nothing. I want to close this down actually and open it back up because we don't need the full blueprint editor. So just did that. So we just get the class defaults right here. It makes it a little easier for what we're doing here because we don't have to add any functionality. Okay, so first things first, let's just move down the list and see what we need to do. Down here in the defaults, we've got the display mesh. I've got here that I went and made a shack mesh. All right, you can use whatever you want. This is a very basic. I just went into Blender, threw this together. It's just a little shack. It's got no materials or anything. I could probably throw on a white material on it, or if I wanted to, you know, the default white material. Yeah, we could probably here, basic floor there. So now it's got a different look to it. So, but this is it. That's all we got. You can use a cube, anything in the starter content, whatever you want. If you really want this mesh, I don't know why you would, but if you really want it, let me know. I could probably throw it in my Dropbox for you. It's not a big deal. It's nothing fancy. Okay, so save that because I added the material to it. Okay, so with that selected, I put the shack in here. Construction proxy, this doesn't matter because we're not going to do actual construction on this, not like any of the other buildings. I'll explain that as we move along. Construction time, because we're not doing any construction, we're doing 0. All right, so come down here in our building struct. If this isn't opened, then just go ahead and click the open button here, building reference, ignore that because that's used internally. Building type, residential, building name. Let's go ahead and change this to shack or whatever you want to call it. Occupation type, it's unemployment because we set that up. Unemployment equals residential or anything where somebody doesn't work. Over here in the max employees is 0. Max residence, let's go ahead and change this to 1. All right, I'm setting this up to where if you've ever played Tropico, like I said, this game is kind of modeled the best I can towards a Tropico style. If you've ever played that, you know how frustrating it is for the NPC. If they don't have a place to live, they just go and throw a random house, a little hovel or shack out in some random location. And it gets pretty annoying. So it forces you to kind of make sure you keep up on your housing demands for your little citizens in your city. So by setting it to 1, it really can get out of control, which is good. That's kind of what you want. You can set it to a couple if you want. You can set it whatever you want. Really, it's up to you. It's your game. I'm just showing you how to do it. But for my purposes, I'm setting it to max residence equals 1. And you'll see why a little bit later. We do want to actually set the actor hidden in the game. So when we spawn it, he's hidden because we're going to have to do some checks just like we do with the ghost proxy and all that. We're going to have to make some checks to make sure it's a good location for him to set it. But yeah, just set it for actor hidden in game. You'll see the full details of why that is a little bit later. So go ahead and compile and save that. And that's really all we've got to do in this one. So let's go ahead and close that out. All right, let's go into our AI here. Open up your behavior tree. Okay, and over here in the homeless section, let's go ahead and we're going to need a little bit of space in here. And I think after this section of the series is done, because it's starting to get a little crowded in here. So I think the next tutorial part of this is we're going to create some sub trees that we can run in here to kind of keep everything nice and polished and a little easier to read and understand and navigate around. Okay, so let's just go ahead and create some space in here for us for now. Grab your build shack section. And we just threw in, we had to have something here. You can't just have a section of a sequence with nothing in it. So it automatically gives you the weight. So we had that there. Let's delete that because now we're going to add our own random weight. Okay. And I want to set this currently for just 2 seconds is fine. So we'll do 2 seconds right there and pull off of this now. Now what we need to do is we need to get a random location. Okay, so we want the NPC to just kind of find a spot in the world and move there and try to figure out if they can build a shack there. We want it random. We don't want them to go to a specific area, you know, like a trailer park. You could if you wanted to. You could build like little trailer parks or something and have them just go build their shacks or a trailer inside the park. However you want to do, maybe a tent city, whatever. So, but we kind of want it into a random location because that's kind of the purpose of, you know, if you don't have proper housing needs for your little citizens, you want it to be a nuisance. So you just kind of want it random location. I found you can set this obviously to whatever you want. We made it, you know, configurable so you can change it. I moved it to 2,000 units. You might want to go back and fine tune that a little bit later. But if you make it too close, if they don't move too far, then you really kind of start to get a really condensed cluster of houses, and it kind of messes with your navigation a little bit, with the navigation of the map. So it can kind of be a problem by doing that. So, but just let them spread out a little bit. 2,000, like I said, that may have to go up a little bit when you do your game balancing down the line. But for now, 2,000 is pretty decent. They get spread out a little bit. I mean, that's really only, 20 meters? So 20 meters in Imperial would be, about 60 feet or something like that? Yeah, right? 20 meters, 3 feet a meter, just about. So yeah, about 60 feet, 65 feet, something like that, away from where they're actually standing, which isn't that far. So that really can go up down the line. So we've got that in there. Make sure all your target keys, target location, that's set up. Your Blackboard keys are set. All right, so now we're going to do a move to location, our custom move to location, and select that. Now, normally when we've used the move to location, like over here when we find the existing house, we use a simple parallel move to location, and we have it ticked to see if we need to stop movement. The reason why we do this section of code right in here is because they're moving to an actual object. They're moving, for this, they're actually moving to the apartment or their house or whatever it is they're moving to. And there is a possibility down the line, obviously we haven't set up the functionality for it yet, but there will be a possibility that that building or that object no longer exists. Just like over here in our occupation area where we're assigning work and all that, if the NPC right down here in the move location, we have this set up to where if they're going to work on the construction of a building, but say halfway there, the construction finishes, it handles that and it stops their movement and allows them to go back and do what they need to do. It starts us all back over and they go back to their office and try to find another place to work. So that's why we handle it like that. But here, they're actually just moving to a point in the map. It's not an actual object. Now, you could probably destroy the world and that point wouldn't exist. But if that happens, well, then the game's pretty much over, I think, at that point. So it's not going to make a big deal. There is a possibility that maybe their place they're moving to, you throw a building in the location they're supposed to go, it'll handle that. If it can't get to the location, if you move to location right here, it'll handle that. It will actually fail. So it would become invalid if they can't get to that location anymore. So then it would fail and it would start the process. He'd find a new random location. So it is handled in here. We just don't need the simple parallel. Okay. So in here, make sure all your keys are set up: destination, current location, house reference. Now, location type, we do want none selected, because back in here, if you do remember, none selected just bypasses. You're not moving to your house. You're not moving to your office. He's just going straight here, making sure he's not invisible and getting your random location that we set in the target here, and then just going through the process of moving to that random location. Okay, and we do want should be invisible when he reaches this. Remember, the should be invisible is after he reaches his location. We don't want him to go invisible once he gets there, so make sure that setting this up, that is set to false. Okay, and the name move to location is fine for our needs for this, because he's just moving to a random location. All right, so after this, I'm going to add in another random weight. You don't need to do this if you really don't want to, but like I said, we're not doing construction in the normal sense that we have been doing it when we're building these shacks. Okay, that's probably just more of a headache than it's really worth. You don't, because what if you don't have? What if it's the first NPC that enters the world and you don't have an apartment for him yet? He's going to go build his shack, but now he's not going to have a place to live because he's got to wait for a construction worker to come work on it and build it, right? That's not an effect you really want. So that's ultimately why we're not doing that. They just think of this as they're going out finding a bunch of sticks, or maybe they moved into your city with a tent on their back, and instead of calling it a shack, you're calling it a tent, right? So that's just kind of use your imagination for that. But we don't want that. Well, you might want them to just get to their location and instantly try to build the shack. But I introduced a random weight here, and I only knocked this down to about 1 second. But I introduced this, so it just kind of seems like they're actually working to build their house a little bit. You can add some sort of animation or whatever you want down the line. That's totally up to you. But that was my logic for putting in random weight right here, was just to make it seem like they were actually kind of constructing their house. Okay, so we've got that. So now we need to actually build our shack. Okay, so we need some functionality for that. So we need to create a new task. Base it off of the task blueprint base. All right, so we got that there. Let's go back out here and rename this. I'm going to call it T_build shack. Okay, got that right there. Let's open that back up. I'm going to Control S and save it. So in our build shack, what we need to do is we need to receive execute AI. The only thing we need off of this is the pawn. We're not going to need the controller for this functionality. So over here in the move to location at the very beginning, like we do with the rest of our stuff, we just easier to copy and paste it. So this one's only got the pawn set up. So Control C, come back out here, Control V. As always, let's fix the name and plug this in like so. Jump back in here, right click this variable and create variable pawn. Compile it and save it. All right, so now we've got that. So what we need to do now is we need to actually spawn our shack. All right, so this is why we spawn actor from class. There it is. This is why we decided to hide him or hide this shack BP when we spawn it, is because we're just going to spawn it in the world, and we're actually going to spawn it at 000. So make transform. We just want to get it into the world and be done with it. So that way we can just do what we need to do before we actually get to our location. So we'll spawn it here. The default collisions on your shack should be ignore and always spawn. But set it here just in case, because we definitely want this to spawn no matter what. Always spawn, ignore collisions, because we're just spawning the world. You might have an object here at this place in the world and it won't spawn it, and it's going to fail this. Okay, but we want it to always succeed. And so yeah, always spawn that. Don't worry about the controller reference. We don't need that for this particular blueprint. Okay, so after that, what we need to do now is we need to promote the return value here to a variable. We'll call it shack reference I'll spell it out for whatever reason because I feel like typing a lot, I guess. All right. I'll go ahead and disconnect the execution here because we need to drop in a sequence. All right. There's a few things to do here, and you don't necessarily need the sequence, but sometimes it just makes things a little cleaner, a little nicer to look at. Okay. So hook up the shack reference to the then 0. All right. So what we're going to need to do now is we need to pull off of this. You can get the other reference if you want because this is going to be in the then 1 section here, but it's right here. So we're going to get this. And I'm sorry if you can hear somebody using a blower, leaf blower or something in their yard. Yeah, it's driving me nuts. Sorry if you hear that. I can't control that. So type static mesh. We want to get somewhere, get our static mesh. Where is it? Get static mesh variables default. Is that the one we want? Man, why do we have all that here? I guess that is the one. So get static mesh. Okay. And then off the static mesh, we need to get component bounds. All right. Get the component bounds. Now, normally you can like pull off this. I'll show you get component bounds. It doesn't give you component bounds. You could do local bounds with the static mesh, but we don't want the local bounds because if you do local bounds, it's going to do something totally different. All right, that's not what we want. I mean, you could do that and then pull off static mesh and get component bounds. See, now you can get it. I don't know. It's kind of weird how it does that, but that's why I did it like that. Okay, so split open this box extent, split the struct right there. All right, we need a new variable. Let's call this one place distance and make it of type float. Okay, and grab your place distance, drag it way out here towards the end, and on the then 1, on the then 1, hook up the execution to the set. All right, now what we need to do is off the box extent Y. All right, pull off of this. Now we need to add. Remember what the extent is. The extent is taking the pivot point of your, in this case, the mesh, and telling you how big the static mesh is on all sides of the from the pivot point. So in this case, we want the Y, which the positive Y, which would be the forward-facing part of the static mesh. It might be a little bit different if your mesh is turned sideways or something. If it's not facing the same direction as mine, you might have to play with this a little bit. But the way we've set things up so far is it's the Y that we're going to need. Okay, so now we know that the extent of the box, say, is 100 centimeters. All right, we need to take that into account. We need to add another number to it because we need to spawn this out in front of where the MPC is at because we need it to where it's not colliding with the MPC. If it's colliding with the MPC, it's going to overlap them and it's not going to spawn it. So we need to provide a distance out in front of him so that it's able to spawn in its location. So I found a decent number. I don't think you can go much lower than this. You could probably go maybe 225. And a lot of it's probably going to kind of depend on the size of your mesh. The extent should take care of the size of your mesh. So this 250 right here, or whatever number you set, should be the same no matter how big your mesh is. But if not, just if it's not spawning for whatever mesh you're using, come back here and change this number and just increase it some. But I found 250 puts it out in front of them just a little ways, but not close enough to collide. Like I said, you could probably go 225, but I set 250, just put it out in front of them. All right. And then take the result of that and put it into place distance. Okay. So now back here, let's add another pin. All right. Now this is going to be our main branch of everything that's going to be happening. So we need to take our shack reference. Let's get it. We need to make sure that this is still valid. It's just kind of one of those things that is probably good to go, good to do as frequently as possible whenever you're trying to retrieve something that can be destroyed, because we're going to destroy this. If you can't place it, we're going to destroy this spawning reference right here. So just make sure it is valid. Okay. And if it is valid, let me move this around here, my cheat sheet. All right, if it's not valid, let's just go ahead and handle that because that's easy. We finish, execute, and succeed is false. We don't want it to succeed if that's the case. All right, so probably give us a little more room in here. Now, if it is valid, let's pull off and do a line trace by channel. Let's just go ahead and plug that in. All right, so now we need a start and end to where we want to try to trace this from. Okay, so let's go ahead and we need a little bit of space back here. Let's go ahead and grab our pawn. Actually, drag that out here. Let's get it. Now we need to, the pawn, because remember, we're basing this off of his location. So let's get actor transform. Right there, get actor transform. Set that out here, and let's go ahead and split this transform. Okay, and we're actually going to need to split this rotation too. So split the rotation. Okay, so what we need to do with this rotation is, let's just go ahead and pull off of this and do a make rotator. All right, and what we're doing with this, you may not need to do this. This is all dependent on the mesh and how you have it in there, and if how it's all lining up. So you may or may not have to do this. We talked about this a while ago when we were doing all our other construction stuff. But for this, for the way I've been importing my meshes, is we've got to add 90 degrees to our rotation in the yaw axis. Okay, so float plus float. Like I said, you may or may not do this. These numbers may be a little bit different for you. It just depends on how your meshes are imported and how they are within the blueprint. I mean, really, we can go into the blueprint and rotate it by 90 degrees, so we don't have to worry about this. But I'm not worried about it. It's not that big of a deal for me. Okay, so we've got that. So we made the rotator for that. So now it's going to rotate the numbers we need here from this transform so that the mesh is facing the pawn when he goes to place it. Okay, and we also need to take this rotator here, and we need to drag it down. We need to get forward vector. Let's just type get forward vector. Okay, forward vector needs a rotator. So we can combine this again right here. We don't want to hook it up to the make rotator because it's going to include the 90 degrees right here. But I'm just going to split the struct pin and then just take all these and just plug it straight in. Okay, you can make a rotator and hook all these back up, but I mean, essentially that's what we're doing right here, is making a rotator into a vector. So we take this now, all right, the forward vector, which is the forward vector of the pawn, in other words, the way he's facing, all right? Now we need to multiply this, because remember, the forward vector is going to come back as a normalized number. It's going to be between 0 and 1. Ultimately, all this is doing is telling us which way he is facing. Okay, so that's what the forward vector is doing. So it's going to be, like I said, between 0.0001, whatever, up to 1.0. So the most this number is going to be is 1. So now we take our placement distance. Let's get it. And then we will actually multiply that. We need to, my bad, we need to multiply this by a float. Take this float, plug it in there, just like so. All right. So now we need to take the actor location. I'm going to add a reroute node right here. I'm going to take the actor location, reroute, oops, another reroute, and we need to add these two vectors together. Okay, so now we take, what this is doing is it's taking the current actor location, finding what his forward vector is, getting the distance that we've placed here in the place distance out in front of him, adding it to his current location from his x vector, from his forward vector, and adding them together to create his new location. Okay, so what we need to do here, there's actually more we need to do here, but I want to show you guys a little bit of debugging. We're just about done with this as far as the basic functionality goes, but there's actually a couple other things we're going to need to do, and I'll show you why. Like I said, I don't necessarily like to just do things because it's fun to do, but we're going to end up having to compensate for some stuff here. So, but we need a start location, all right, to run this line trace, and that's going to be the location we just did here, and an end location. Let's just do plus vector plus vector, and in the Z do minus 200. Okay, and plug that into the end trace right there. Oh yeah, I was going to do that. Okay, I've already ran this. Well, sorry, I was a little confused there. All right, so I wasn't going to show this line trace part. This was something I came across. What we're doing right here, the reason why I'm doing this right here, and why did I get... and we'll use a rotator in just a bit. But yeah, whew, one of those days, guys, one of those days. Episode's almost over. What was happening is because when we're getting the location of the transform here, what it's running this off of is the pivot point. Well, the pivot point on the MPC is in the middle of his chest. So what was happening was they were placing the building, the shack, but it was actually at the level of the MPC's chest. It was never going to the ground. Okay, so what we did here with the line trace, by getting all this, is we're running a line trace to go down below the shack 200. You can run this higher if you want. You do 2,000 or whatever, but really if it's got to go down any lower than a couple hundred, centimeters, you probably don't want to place the shack there. It's probably not in a good location. So we'll run the line trace right here. All right, and that's, we'll keep the visibility there. Complex is simple. Trace complex is simple. And ignore self. All right, but yeah, so that's what we're doing right here is we're just running this line trace to prevent or to actually find the ground when placing the shack. Okay, so yeah, pull this out. Like I said, I wasn't going to show this. I wanted to show you guys what it was doing and then help you problem solve why it was happening. But maybe I can bypass this line trace and as an example, just kind of show you guys what it was doing. Okay, so run a branch out here. All right, this branch, we're just going to check to make sure that it actually hits something in the trace. All right, because like I said, if it doesn't hit anything within 200 centimeters, it's probably not a location you want them to spawn in. That's pretty. It might be a steep cliff or something, so you don't necessarily want them to place anything right there if it's below that. So check to make sure that it did hit something, and if it didn't, that's the simple part. Let's just pull off of this and do finish execute and make it succeed as to fail. All right. And of course we need to probably handle that too, because we don't necessarily want it to fail. We want it to destroy we want it to destroy the actor. You know what? That's what we need to do here. We need to go, if it does fail, we'll probably have to handle this here too, is go destroy actor. Dang it. Won't be able to do it without the shack. Take our shack reference. Get it. Destroy. I didn't do this in my other one, in my main one. I'm going to need to do that though. We're going to need to, if this fails, we're going to need to destroy the actor because we don't want a bunch of unseen spawned shacks at coordinate 000 or wherever it might be. So we want to destroy that and then fail the success. And then same thing right here. Let's just go ahead and copy that and paste it. Grab it, destroy the shack. Oh, well, I guess if it's not valid, then there's no object to destroy. So never mind. If it's not valid, there's nothing in there to destroy. So yeah, don't mind me. Sorry about that, guys. All right. But if it's true, and there's actually more we're going to have to do, this is going to end up having to be part 2, and it'll actually probably be a little easier in part 2. But what we need to do for right now is we need to make sure that it's not overlapping anything. Okay, so take our shack reference. Let's get it. Pull this out and do get overlapping actors. Select that right there. And let's just go ahead and change the class filter to actors, which should pretty much be everything, but you don't have to set this right here, but it'll check against everything, which might not be a bad thing, but actor virtually is everything anyways. Okay, so now pull off of this and do length. We need to know how many are in here. And really, it doesn't matter how many are in there. It just matters, is there anything in there? So do greater than 0. So if there's even just 1 in here, then we don't want to spawn this, okay? So run another branch, pull it off the true, or hook it up to the true from the last branch. Plug this right up into so. All right, and if it is true, then we could just go ahead and select this and go Control W, place that right there. And that's what we're going to want to do. If it is overlapping anything, we want to destroy it, finish execute fail so he can find another location and start the process all over again. But if he succeeds, we need to create a new variable here. And no, we don't. I thought that said something else. Oops. We don't need that. We need to take our shack reference. Let's get it. Yeah, we do. I thought I saw that in here. Do house reference. Make it of type Blackboard key selector and make sure it's exposed. Pull it down here. We'll get this and set as object. Take our shack, plug it right into there, hook this up to the false. Okay, so now our Blackboard will be populated with our housing reference right here. It won't actually be our house yet. We're going to have to set that up. So what we need to do now is, now that we actually place the building, set it as our house reference, let's just go ahead and set actor, set hidden in game, select that. Let's plug this in. I'm nearing my time limit on this, so we're just about done. And new hidden false. We don't want it to be hidden any longer. Okay, so now we need to take the pawn. Let's get it. And if you remember correctly, we created a function called set new set tenant. Where is that? Oh no, it's off of the all right, we'll need that pawn reference, but actually it's in our building master. Set new tenant. Actually, I think it's in our residential master. Set new tenant off of the shack because it's a child of the residential and the building master, wherever this function lies. I believe it's the residential. And then the NPC to add is the pawn reference. Okay, and then that's it. Finish execute, and we want it to succeed. Compile that and save it. I am at the end of the episode, and the next one really shouldn't be too long. It's just kind of explaining some things. We're not going to be able to demo this quite yet. We could pull this out here and do build shack. And actually, we probably could. 32 minutes. Yeah, you know what? We'll finish this up. We won't be able to test this right off the bat. That's functionality. We're about 33 minutes into this. There's a few more things to do, but if I went ahead and completed it now, it'd probably make this about, I don't know, 7 to 10 minutes longer, which I don't necessarily want to do. But also, that's like 7 or 10 minutes less on the next one, and the next video doesn't really look to be that long of a video. So I won't wait too long. Actually, I'll probably finish this up right now and sign out, and then go back and start recording that episode so that way it's ready, just like I did with the last 2 episodes. So anyways, I hope you guys found this useful. If you did, do me a favor, go down, hit that like button. It helps me out a ton. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe while you're down there liking it. Until next time, peace.